Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another technical analysis video. Today we're going to be taking a look at ICP, the Internet Computer Protocol, with what's been going on most recently with the price action and where I think things are heading next. As I get into today's video, if you do find it useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe and stay up to date with all the content that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Let's jump right down into today's video. So here we have ICP paired up with USDT. We're on the 1-day Binance chart here, and you can see that we tapped into our higher range, our expectations on the 22nd of July. We've seen a bit of a correction to the downside. This is looking quite an interesting spot for ICP. It does also show potentially that we actually have a little bit more room to the downside before we kind of continue this run a little bit higher. Okay, so it's going to be interesting. Let's jump into what Elliott wave theory is kind of showing us here. So we have this interesting structural point to the downside. We bounce up and then we come down again. Okay, now this move is one that is going to come down a fair chunk deeper in the coming probably week or so. We are targeting out a slightly lower range down here between the $8.25 and the $8.58. Okay, that's going to be the typical area where you'd find retracement to go to. And it's also worth noting that we've already met our minimum expectations by going down into a new lower low on the daily time frame, right? So interestingly, there are some interesting points here of reference. We had this previous area that we were talking about in the last ICP video, $8.38 to $8.76. This is a previous area of resistance that we're thinking of coming down to and trying to find into support. It's not a coincidence that this area for the 1 to the 1.236 is going to overlap with this range. This is an interesting point where we think that this is likely to hold as a key support level with probably no closed positions lower than the $8.38. Could be wrong on that, but from a probability point of view, based on all the data that we see here, we're looking for a three-wave structure like this. This is then going to gear us up for another run to the upside. Now, if we can't hold this area, it is possible that we end up with something called a WX, Y, X, and Z, and we come down into that slightly deeper range where it's $7.50 to $7.88. Okay, this still should hold in my opinion, and if we can't hold that, then we've got bigger impulsive issues where we'll then start talking about that move to $6.24 to $6.65. But for the most part, we are hopeful that the first area holds with that kind of target between $8.26 and $8.58. Failure to do so, then we hope for the second layer, and if that can't hold, then obviously we look for the more bearish situations. But the good news is that we do have a 5-wave move to the upside. The 5-wave move in itself is a trend reversal, right? So we can see that we came down, we have a 5-wave pattern here, and for the medium term, this is a great sign because it does mean that our minimum expectations are going to be an additional 5-wave move where we look to rally up a little bit higher, like so. And depending on how low this goes will obviously depend on that targeted range. Okay, so it does look very, very interesting for ICP at the moment. Great run to the upside where we saw some significant percentage gains of, 89.06%, pretty much throughout July. Been a great July for that kind of price appreciation. But now we are looking at the profits getting taken. We're looking for those corrections to the downside. Bitcoin's doing quite well at the moment, and well, you haven't really seen a favorable ICP price action on the back of it. So it just shows that there's really not an appetite right now to be buying. Value, I think, will come in down here between $8.38 and $8.76, and that's where I think the buyers are likely to step into the market. So let's go ahead and throw on those moving averages. What do we see? Well, we can see that we had last night closed lower than the 50 EMA. Although we're fighting it today, if we can get a closed position back above, that might give us a little bit more strength in a bit of a rally before we move back down again. And again, that could change our targeted ranges ever so slightly. The 50 SMA, the yellow line though, is right inside our targeted range. So a slippage down there to find support on the 50 SMA could be something that we see. The 200-day EMA is obviously higher than the price action at the moment. And so as our trend filter, this is showing us with bearish situations unfolding for ICP, unfortunately. There will be, of course, a moment where we rally above it, but you can have these fake outs where we did get a closed position above the 200 EMA on the 21st and then immediately closed below it on the 22nd. So our EMAs, SMAs are interesting. We might be finding support, but I think more than likely we are likely to see slippage down into the targeted range. If we go ahead and throw smart money concepts into the mix, you can see that we've already kind of started to look at these fair value gaps. You can see that there's a fair value gap immediately where our price action is currently finding support at the $9.02 to the $9.24. This fair value gap is likely to get filled out, in my opinion. As we look to the targeted range, there is a big fair value gap all the way down here at $7.50 up to the higher range of $8.43. This fair value gap has a difficult time of getting filled out right now, but something that we need to kind of consider as a possibility. So we'll keep a close eye on it. And down at the lower range here is where the discounted range is. The discounted range essentially is showing us where a lot of the buying pressure is. Okay, but we are in, unfortunately, still a bearish territory from a smart money concepts point of view. We have a negative or a bearish change of characterization that hasn't changed yet. And as a result of this, we have a weak low and a strong high. These are an indication of basically that the market is weak at the moment for ICP. This does not take into consideration, though, that recent rally to the upside. That 5-wave count at Elliott Wave theory tells us is that we are likely to break out of the bearish pattern as we get that next run to the upside. Okay, but that won't happen until we first find great support. So knowing these things is quite interesting to us, right? The discounted range, which is where the value is, that's this green area down here, okay? And then we have our premium range, which is where the sellers are, right? And you can see that with the red area here, okay? Equilibrium, current resistance, is the 50% area between discount and premium, and is our resistance line at the moment. We will be looking for a breakout and closure above the equilibrium, and I think that is where we're going to then start to see these changes of characters more into bullish structures than bearish ones, which will then turn into a weak high, strong low situation. So smart money concepts is basically saying that we should be expecting a bit of a retracement. We are bearish, and Elliott Wave theory tells us that we are short-term bearish, but we are looking for a breakout. And unfortunately, smart money concepts can't look that far ahead. So it's going to be an interesting one. We are going to be looking for a breakout, in my opinion, but not before we've had a bit of a retracement and a retest of previous areas of resistance to turn those into support. Now, if I go ahead and turn smart money concepts off and bring up our stochastic RSI, as you can see, we are oversold on the daily, 8-hour, 4-hour, but not the 1 hour. So we're expecting some volatility here where we are looking for that retracement before we get into those big surges. We definitely do have momentum at our fingertips here to see great runs to the upside and that breakout on that medium term. Probably won't happen this week, maybe next week, but it's looking likely to occur in the next probably 2 weeks or so, I would have thought. But time in the market is something incredibly difficult that I cannot do. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at the divergence indicator, the relative strength index here, the yellow line, has come down and bounced from that 50 area, basically still in bullish territory, plenty of momentum to the upside, and our upward trend is still very much intact according to the relative strength index. So looking strong from there. ICP's volumes are also quite interesting. Basically, as we've had this correction to the downside most recently here, volumes have also decreased, showing there isn't a huge appetite for selling into this move to the downside. On that note, though, it's also worth noting that there's really not that much in the way of increase in volumes whilst we're pushing up either, which shows there isn't a huge amount of demand at the moment. But I think that could change as the market starts to liven back up again. So after kind of considering everything here, I do think we have a high probability of a small retracement before we get into those next big runs to the upside. Those next big runs to the upside are going to be breakout situations where we are going to be targeting out into kind of those upper areas of resistance. I would be surprised if we can't reach into at least kind of $14 to $15 range, maybe even that previous area of around $16 as well. So it does look like we are on the verge of a nice run for ICP. Guys, you can let me know what your thoughts are on all of this in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What is your short, medium, or long-term targets for ICP? Let me know. If you found today's video useful and informative, smash that like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. And if you haven't done so yet, you should go check out my technical analysis channel where I talk a lot more about the TA on various different projects. Go ahead and check it here and check it out.